Okay, I'd say it's 6 o'clock. So I'm going to 6 o'clock on March. What day is it? March 4th. I'm going to open up the Finance Committee meeting. And the first item on the agenda is the budget discussion with Bay Path Regional Technical Vocational School. So Dean and Kyle, go ahead.
Good evening. Okay, so you'll go through the slides for us. I was just going to ask if you want to allow us screen share. So good evening. I'm Kyle Brenner, Superintendent of Bay Path Regional, and I have our business manager, Dean Ikabuchi, with me tonight. And I thought I saw online our two school committee members that represent Rutland, Miss Anne Marie Pantos and Mr. Joe Becker. So the budget we present tonight was developed based on the assumption that school will resume 100% in-person learning next year, and that many of the health and safety measures we put in place this year will remain in place to mitigate the viral transmission. Additionally, the budget will maintain the core values of providing our students with a high-quality academic and technical education. The proposal continues our efforts to address not only our students' academic and technical needs, but also their social and emotional well-being. We're committed to our mission, as well as maintaining our fiscal responsibilities to our member communities, even during these difficult financial times. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Dean Ikabuchi to go through the budget slides.
Thank you, Kyle. Can everybody hear me okay?
It's a little bit closer.
Okay, how about now?
I can hear you.
All right, if not, please stop me or wave or something so that I know that you can't hear me. Before we get started on the presentation, I just want to be sure that you received our budget packet, not the presentation, but the budget. I'm sure it looks familiar to a lot of you because it's in the same format that it has been. I'm not going to go through it this evening. You've all seen it before, but what you do have in front of you with the budget is a summary of how our budget gets funded. You have some demographic information and statistical information. You have a line item budget, a complete line item budget. You have a summary of our special revenue accounts in the back, and then you have a summary of our grants. So it's about as complete of financial information as we can provide. I'm going to move through these slides quickly because, again, it's in the same format that you've seen in the past, but there is some new information towards the end that I want to spend a fair amount of time on so that there's a clear understanding of what's going on. So while I'm going through these slides, if I'm moving too quickly, please slow me down, or if you have any questions, please stop me and we'll answer them best we can. So moving to page 2, or slide 2,
Dean?
Yes.
Hold on 1 second. I got a hand up of Mitch. I don't know if he has to call his meeting to order.
Yeah, sorry everybody. We didn't have a quorum at the opening of the meeting, but I see that Jeff Stillings has joined. I think Leah's in the waiting room as well. So I want to go ahead at 6:04, March 4th, and open the Board of Selectmen. Appreciate that, Karen. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you could ask if somebody knows the password. Leah's having a hard time getting in without a passcode.
There shouldn't be a passcode. The link that was provided on the agenda brought you directly to the Zoom meeting and opened it.
No, it worked for me too, Mr. Chairman, but Leah's saying both links say invalid member ID and she can't get in. And I do know there was a password. Maybe if we just, what do you guys?
Right under the link.
That's the invitation meeting number, but it's not the passcode.
Oh, sorry.
It's the ID number. Does it, Peter was saying there was a passcode at the very beginning of the meeting. Peter, do you know what that passcode number is?
I'm looking for it right now. Give me just one moment, please. There it is, 809485.
809 what?
485.
All right, thank you. I'll text it to Leah.
Okay, Dean, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you. All right, so as I said, I'm going to try to move through this quickly. I know you have a busy agenda this evening as well. This budget is predicated on Governor Baker's proposed state budget, our Chapter 70 funding, is a $327,020 increase over our current funding. The proposed Chapter 71 funding, which is transportation, is a $309,051 decrease over current funding. And as you know, these are preliminary estimates and are subject to change as the House and Senate deliberate on the budget. On slide number 3, so how does this impact BayPath? Our Chapter 70 funding of $11,570,228 is an increase of $327,20. The minimum contributions that our towns are required to give us are $9,827,933, and that is an $888,915 increase over current funding. Our required net school spending has increased by $1,215,935, and that is simply the addition of the Chapter 70 funding and the minimum contribution increase. Moving to page 4, our total budget for assessments is $24,561,858. Our member town assessments are at the very minimum that is allowed by state law. The operational budget also includes our debt service assessment of $1,564,103. And again, and if this were in color, you would see this in bold red. The operational budget does not require funds above minimum contributions. And member assessments total $11,745,288. One thing that we are also making sure that everybody is clear on, and I'm on slide number 5, is although our assessments are at minimum, it's important to note that the minimum contribution levels for each town have increased by $888,915. We sometimes get questioned locally about why we are only asking for minimums. And really the short answer is the town's contributions collectively have gone up by almost $900,000. And that in and of itself is an increase not certainly caused by our budget, but caused by the information that the state puts out and the spending requirements that the state puts out. Some of you may recall that at the end of last fiscal year, the school committee adopted a provision of the law that allows for a regional transportation reimbursement fund. And why we did that last year, at the end of last year, is as you recall, school abruptly ended in the middle of March, in which we also were able to renegotiate our transportation contracts, which meant the expenses weren't there, but we had already raised the revenue required to pay for transportation for the entire year. Had we not done something with that, the excess revenues would have closed out to our excess and deficiency fund, which is our free cash similar to the towns. The school committee, based on our recommendations, agreed that a way to handle that and a way to get those funds back to the community is to establish the Regional Transportation Reimbursement Fund, put surplus appropriations into that fund, and then by statute, they have to be paid the next year. We believe this year, we will be able to put in at least $300,000 into the reimbursement, the Regional Transportation Reimbursement Fund, again due to decreases in transportation costs. And those funds are used to directly offset the transportation costs for next year. And you'll see that in a slide in a moment. On slide number 6, we have a summary of, again, all of our revenue. We also have a sewer betterment fee that we pay to the town of Charlton of $30,750. That's an annual fee. And I believe next year is the last year that we will be assessing that. We are also recommending that the school committee appropriate $50,000 from our excess and deficiency to continue to fund our OPEB liability. And then finally, we've asked the school committee to reserve $150,000 of excess and deficiency accounts for any unknown and at this point, any unbudgeted COVID-related expenses. As you know, with your town, your ability to use free cash ends on June 30th, and it doesn't come back until your free cash is certified. For us, our free cash probably won't be certified till January or February of 2022, yet we have to start the fiscal year in August, well, not the fiscal year, but the school year in August. What this does is it provides $150,000 of available funding to address unknown expenses, and there's no cost or increase in assessment to the towns because the offset of that is an appropriation from E&D. And as you know, if you include an appropriation of free cash or E&D in your budget, once your budget's approved, the use of the E&D is approved. So that was a safeguard that we put into the budget just in the event that we have to deal with any unknown or spikes in any of the expenses we have. On slide number 7, you see how our budget comes together. Our Chapter 70 funding is $11,570,228. We do have a school choice assessment of $197,697, and that comes right off of our Chapter 70 funding. We don't see it, it's taken off by the state before they send us the receipt. The town's collective minimum contribution amounts are $9,827,933. You see the E&D appropriation to fund the OPEB liability of $50,000, and then you see the $150,000 that we've requested for COVID expenses, making our total operational budget $21,400,464. Below that, you see our transportation budget. Our estimated expenses are $1,521,541. That expense is then offset by our Chapter 70 funding of $899,039. You see a reduction being made for the Transportation Reimbursement Fund. Again, that's surplus appropriations this year going right back to the towns to reduce their transportation assessment. You see that of $300,000, leaving only $322,502 left to assess to the 10-member towns. Third part of our budget is the debt service. You see the principal and the interest for a total of $1,564,103. And then you see the capital sewer tie-in of $30,750, making our total budget for assessments $24,516,858. We then add back in the school choice assessment, making our total operating budget, including school choice, of $24,714,555. On slide number 8, what's in our budget? We'll go through these quickly. We believe that we have adequately provided for supplies and materials for all of our classrooms and our vocational programs. We have included funds for new social studies books, and we've also included funds to purchase the books necessary for our new program, Veterinary Science, which we hope to be starting in the fall. Our intent was to start that program this year. However, going into a hybrid model, not being able to complete the building that the program's going to be running, there was just no way that we could start that program this year. We've also included some funds for the purchase of equipment and advanced manufacturing, and again for the veterinary science program. On slide number 9, we have funds to include one full-time veterinary science teacher who will build the program, write the curriculum, and get the program started. We've also included funds for one full-time history teacher to address class sizes. We have funds included to restore a part-time vocational job site coordinator. And the reason why that says to restore is last year, we had that full-time vocational job site coordinator, keeping in mind that at any point in time, we have upwards of 150 students out on job sites where the job site needs to be reviewed, the work that the students need to be completing is reviewed, and we have a part-time or a half-time equivalent to do that. However, that gentleman resigned at the end of last school year to take a job elsewhere, and we didn't fill the position this year because clearly we don't have the same number of students out on vocational job sites. So that we reallocated those funds this year, and we are looking to restore that position next year. And we've also included funds to provide wage increases for all of our union and non-union personnel. We've included funds to continue with online learning if necessary, and that is a reserve to pay for tuition expenses for anybody who chooses to be full remote. We're hoping that everybody will be full in person, but we also believe that the state may allow full remote as an option for parents. We didn't want to be caught short, so we made sure that we made a provision for that to pay the tuition. We also have included funds to implement the Student Opportunity Act, which is again another act which increased our Chapter 70 funding that was supposed to go into effect this year, but because of the pandemic was delayed until next year. And then finally, we're extremely pleased to announce how stable our health insurance rates are. We have had the same health insurance rates for 2 years, and next year we are looking at a 2% decrease for fiscal year 22. 3 years ago, we approached our staff, negotiated with our unions to have a change in the plan design. We increased co-pays, we introduced a deductible, and the promise that was made at that time is this will stabilize rates. And in fact, it's not only has it stabilized it, but at least for the first 3 years, it's decreased it. So we're very pleased about that. On slide number 11, you see our freshman seat allocation. We're expecting to bring in 315 freshmen next year, and Rutland's share of those students is 29. Page 12 shows us our foundation enrollment by town, and this is one of the leading factors that is driving your assessment increase. You can see that your foundation enrollment for next year has increased by nearly 18%, and that's just more students coming to Bay Path. There's also an impact with the total population in your town, and we'll discuss that in a minute. If you look at your foundation enrollment, I'm on slide number 13. As a district, you have 59 fewer students in your foundation enrollment. However, if you look at the breakdown of that, Wachusett Regional is seeing a decrease of 70 students, while we're seeing an increase from Rutland of 11 students. And you'll see in a minute how that plays out again, affecting your assessment. Moving to slide number 14, the state calculates your required local contribution, and it's based on a lot of factors, but really, to cut to the short of it, to come up with your required local contribution, you start with the amount that you are required to fund this year. And again, this is the minimum required local contribution. For Rutland, it was $7,988,286. That amount is then increased by your municipal revenue growth factor, which is quite healthy, comparatively speaking, to a lot of our districts. You know, oftentimes as finance committee members, you will hear the term municipal revenue growth factor, and you know, oftentimes people scratch their head and say, all right, what do you use it for? Well, this is one of the things that you use it for. Your required contribution for this year is increased by that municipal revenue growth factor, which for Rutland, as I said, is 4.84%, almost 5%. That makes your preliminary required local contribution for next year $8,374,919. Now, the state also creates what's called a target share for local contribution. If you're at your target share, there's no adjustment. If you're below your target share, there's an increase. And if you are above your target share, there's an adjustment down, and it's referred to as excess local contribution, which in this case is a good thing for Rutland, because that $8.3 million is reduced by the excess local contribution of $190,485, making Rutland's required local contribution $8,184,434. That is the amount at the minimum that you need to provide for education, and then that is split amongst all of your school districts. And that would be us, Wachusett, and if you have any students attending the agricultural schools, that would be taken into consideration as well. Below that, you see the foundation budget apportionment. And the reason why I put that on there is because we need to focus on those percentage numbers that are to the far right of that graph. But again, the state calculates your foundation budget, and then as a function of foundation enrollment, a percentage is determined for each of your educational entities. The town of Rutland has no students attending the agricultural schools. Wachusett makes up 93.74%, and Bay Path makes up 6.26%. And on the next slide, we're gonna see why these numbers are important. So moving to slide number 15. As I stated earlier, Rutland's required contribution is $8,194,434. Those funds are then allocated by the percentages that we saw previously based on the foundation, budget, and enrollment. And what you can see happening here, and this is completely because of a shift in the population, the decrease that Wachusett's seeing in their enrollment, and the increase we're seeing, or where Rutland is required to give us a bigger piece of that pie. We're getting more of the $8.1 million. So it shows contributes towards the increase in your required contribution. But what it really is a shift of that required local contribution from one entity to another. And you can see how those percentages play out, and then how it impacts the required contribution. Moving to slide 16. This is some interesting information on a report called the School Attending Children Report. This is a report that the state makes available to us based on student population in your town as of January 1st of any given year. This information includes all school-age students, whether they are homeschooled, private schooled, school choice, public school. These are the total number of school-age students residing in your community. And we put this information in there for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's what we use to determine what your capital population assessment is, or I'm sorry, your debt service assessment is. It's based on the percentage of students in your town, and these are school-age students. But it also, we put it out there so you can see the trend. You know, when we say that, you know, any school district is losing a lot of school population, it's not because they're doing something wrong. It's not because people are choosing to go elsewhere. It's really because the amount of school-age students residing in our district is declining. If you look at the numbers from January 1st, 2020 to January 1st, from January 1st, 2019 to January 1st, 2020, our district lost 249 students. And if you look at it going back to January 1st, 2013, we've lost as a district 1,221 students. That's incredible. And you know, when you think about, you know, what we're all receiving in Chapter 70 and in minimum contribution requirements, that has an impact just in those 7 years of about $25 million that isn't coming into our towns to fund education. So I've put this information out there so that you can see what's happened with Rutland. You can see just from 1 year, there was a loss of 20 school-age students. And if you look at it for that 7-year period, there's been a loss of 55 students. That's simply because there's that many fewer kids living in the town of Rutland. Moving on to page 17, or slide 17, is a breakdown of not only your assessment, but the 10 towns. But if we focus on Rutland's, you can see your minimum contribution is $512,547. Moving across to about the middle of the page, Rutland's share of the $322,502 that we need to assess is $16,674. Again, moving across, Rutland's share of the debt service assessment is $146,244. And then finally, your share of the capital improvement, the $30,750, is $2,875, making your total assessment $678,340. Again, that is, as you can see, the minimum amount that is required. If you look at page 18, however, you can see how that compares to this year. And there's no discounting the fact that it's a 21.28% increase. And you can see that it's completely driven by the change in minimum contribution, which again is almost completely impacted by that shift in population. Now, I just went through a ton of information, and I want to pause here because the information that's coming up on these slides is new. It's something we've never had to deal with. It's something we've never discussed with you. So before I move on, did anybody have any questions on the information that I just went through? Okay, so let's move to slide number 19. Typically, I don't like to read to people, but there's no way to summarize this in my mind without goofing it up. So I'm going to read it. This is concerning the use of a new grant funds called the Elementary and Secondary School Relief Grant, or affectionately known as ESSER. And since this is the second round of ESSER funding, it's SR2 funding. The governor's budget proposal allows city and towns experiencing increases in their minimum local contributions to fund all or a part of the increase using federal stimulus money or the SR2 funds. If a regional school district's member municipality decides to exercise this provision, the district must reduce that member's minimum local contribution by its SR2 share in the calculation of the member's assessment. Regional school district members can only use a share up to 75% of the district's total SR2 award, which is equal to their share of the district's total required contribution. We'll go through that in just 1 minute. Member towns should understand that if this provision is included in the final budget, and that by using the SR2 funds to offset next year's minimum local contribution increase, it represents a one-time only municipal relief, meaning if your assessment is reduced by your share of the SR2 funds, when the state then calculates the fiscal year 23 numbers, they'll remove the SR2 reduction.
Kyle, if it's okay through you, Madam Chairwoman. Kyle, just a question on this, and I was trying to get a grasp of this. How would this, in terms of Bay Path only, and I get that it sounds to me that if we took this and used this program, in 22 it would reduce our assessment to some degree. As you said, in 23, we'd have to pay that increase, plus whatever the new increase is. But in terms of Bay Path, how much would that impact us in terms of fiscal year 22?
Okay, we're gonna get right into that right now, Ron.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
If we move to slide number 20, I have to admit, I didn't create this form. It was created by one of my colleagues, and then shared to a lot of business managers. I liked the format, so I kept it, but I didn't want to take credit for it. In that first column under Southern Worcester County Regional heading, we are expected to receive in SR2 funds $447,033. 75% of that, which is one of the requirements in the governor's budget, or the statement that only 75% of that is available. 75% of that is $335,275. How do we then split that across our 10 towns? Right below that, you see the total required minimum local contribution, which we spoke about earlier, of $9,827,933. That $335,275 is broken out or allocated based on what each town's percentage of that $9.8 million is as compared to their minimum local contribution. So if we move across to almost the middle of the page, you can see that your required local contribution in fiscal year 22 is $512,547. That, as a percentage of the $9.8 million, is 5.2%. So you are entitled to 5.2% of the $335,275, making Rutland's share $17,485. And you have that same information for all of the 10 towns. So that's how this graph kind of walks you through what your share is, the $17,485, and you can see what the numbers that it's based on are. So Ron, does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I just want to say it in my own words, so I'm clearing this, because I was having a hard time. I only looked at this for a few minutes and I was having a hard time understanding. So what you're saying to us is that we could effectively reduce our assessment by $17,485 in the fiscal 22 year budget. But what's going to happen in fiscal year 23 is they're going to add back that $7,485 plus whatever increase there is next year in 2023.
That's correct, Ron. You absolutely have it. Your baseline for fiscal year 23 will include that $17,485.
So the overall
reduction, it's a reduction one time only in your assessment.
So, I mean, overall, I guess I'd say it's a good thing for Rutland because we effectively saved $17,485 for 1 year, and that's it. But we are gonna later on, it's gonna create a little bit of a hole in the process for the following year. But the net answer is it, no matter how you look at it, it saves us $17,485, right?
Right, and it's a 1 year. You are 100% correct when you recognize this as a 1 year only reduction.
And how do we, if we chose to do that, what do we just send you a letter notifying you we want to do that? How do we?
Yeah,
how
we're
do
gonna
we go
address
about
that. We're gonna address that question too in a minute.
I thank you.
You're 1 page ahead of me, Ron, every time.
Sorry about that.
I'm not gonna say one step though. So moving to slide number 21. How does that impact Rutland other than, you know, the fact that it's a $17,000 reduction? If you look at your minimum contribution, and again, we'll focus on Rutland, based on the governor's budget, and this is the second column, your minimum contribution is $512,547. It would be a decrease, moving to the middle of the page, of $17,485. That changes the percentage increase of your minimum local contribution. It reduces it from 29.63% to 25.21%. And then again, moving to slide number 22, how does that affect your total assessment? Again, currently, your total assessment is $678,340. There's a reduction of the $17,485, making your adjusted assessment $660,855. And that reduces the increase from 21.28% to 18.16%. So not a huge difference, but it is a difference. And Ron, this is probably where we're going with this, and I'm gonna read this, and this is on, page number 23. There is no way of knowing if this provision will be included in the final state budget. As a side note, there is a pretty heavy push going on from the educational districts to have this removed. People on the education side are kind of viewing this as, you've given the school district X amount of dollars, but we're not able to expend the X amount of dollars because it needs to go back to the municipalities. So there's a push, and I don't know how successful that push would be, but to get this language out where we would then just receive the full allocation of the grant. So because there's no way of knowing if this provision will be included in the final state budget, the assessments adopted by the school committee do not include the reductions of the town's minimum local contribution by its SR2 share of the calculation. If the school committee were to apply the reduction now, and the provisions of this ESSA grant is not included in the final state budget, the 8 towns who would have been eligible to receive a reduction would now need to increase their funding by BayPath at a special town meetings. We will have adopted a budget that didn't have the full minimum local contribution. That's what you would appropriate at town meeting, probably in May or June, and more than likely the state budget isn't going to be adopted till after that. Now, as we did in December 2020, and in any year that we've had surplus revenue, the school committee typically returns excess funds that are received by the district after the adoption of the budget and lowers assessments. In the event this provision is included in the final state budget, the school committee can vote to reduce the members' assessments by their share of the SR2 allocations. And the safeguard for you as a municipality is, it is solely up to you. So even if the school committee said, we're not gonna lower MLCs by their SR2 allocations, it's out of the purview of the school committee. It solely lies with the town, and it goes to what you had just asked a few minutes ago. Yes, it's as simple as sending a letter saying we want the SR2 allocation used to lower our MLC. And I can tell you that the school committee is on board with that. It would be our intention to make sure that we alert the towns to the ability to lower the MLCs and then move in that direction if it is included in the final state budget. So I know I threw a lot of information, and this is new information. We'd certainly be happy to answer any questions or circle back to anything if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
Madam Chairman, if I could?
Okay, hold on one second. I want to make sure that we've got all the members. No one has any other questions? Okay, go ahead, Ron, and then I got some questions.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to get this issue of minimum level contribution, so I'm clear on how this works. So in this case, it's whatever that 7 million is, and the town pays the minimum, but they would also add to that transportation funding, any debt service funding as well to that would be part of that minimum. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I frankly, I'm really not looking at much you because your numbers are smaller, but in terms of Wachusett, when we do them next, I want to understand how that works. So we're kind of required to pay more than the minimum local contribution because we're also required to pay whatever percentage of transportation and stuff as well. Even though it's not part of the minimum, you still have to pay that piece of it that's allocated towards your town, correct?
That's correct. The minimum, Ron, is just the amount you're required to give to meet net school spending requirements. Net school spending requirements do not include transportation, capital, or debt.
Okay. So that's added to no matter what, even if you want to spend it, even if you wanted, like we wanted to give you money just for the minimum, we'd still have to give you the money for transportation.
That is correct.
I just wanted to make sure I clearly understood that.
Yeah, no,
The
you got
minimum
it.
is really not completely the minimum, but it's the education component minimum, I guess is the.
That is correct.
All right, thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
So Dean, I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So I noticed that you guys put in for online teaching the $100,000. That would be in case you guys are stuck in a hybrid model again, next fall.
No, not necessarily, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
No, so, Madam Chair, that's in case parents have the option to choose full remote. So,
Okay,
for whatever reason, they're still nervous, we're 100% in, things aren't fully settled, they want to stay full remote, and the state allows that. That would be the money we use to provide that remote learning for those students.
and then the only other question that I see is a salary reserve increase of 334,155. Is that just the percentages to the union and non-union, or is there other things in there as well?
No, it is just the percentage increases for the union and non-union, but I don't want it to be, I don't want you to think that we're running wild with raises. We are still currently in negotiations with all of our unions currently.
Okay,
So in that salary reserve account, or actually in the salary accounts that are in our line item budget,
Yep.
there aren't the increases from this year carried forward into next year. So that salary reserve is actually carrying funds for the increases that need to be funded this year that are carried into next year, and a percentage increase for next year.
okay.
Mr. Becker had the same question. Did I do a better job explaining it this time, Joe?
No, you did fine both times, Dean.
Thanks.
I have a question, Karen.
Go ahead, Darren.
I wonder if the Bay Path School superintendent could give a tutorial to some other school districts on how to lower healthcare costs.
Well, that was a decision we made 3 years ago, I'm sorry, 7 years ago, to join Hampshire Council Group Insurance Trust, which has the buying power of about 80 different cities and towns and school districts. So we're a very large group. I think they insure something in the area of about 2,000 souls. So we have an enormous buying power. And I have to give credit to where credit's due. Our union stepped up, because normally negotiating a plan design change with your unions is kind of the equivalent of banging your head against a brick wall. But our unions understood what we were trying to do, got on board with it, and now they're seeing the benefit of that.
Well, kudos, guys. I'm just that's a big win and
Yeah.
for everybody. And
Agree.
Yeah.
And
you guys
thank you.
work hard with the unions and everybody, and you guys deserve a little bit of praise for that. So that's
Thank you.
my first part of that was being a little bit comical, but I do want to say that as a finance committee member, I appreciate it. You guys did really, that's pretty cool in today's day and age to get that accomplished.
Well, thank you.
Karen, if there's no other question, I do have one more. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
So first of all, give me the name of that healthcare thing. We're using Maya. What was the name of it?
Hampshire Council Group Insurance Trust.
What group insurance trust was the first part?
Hampshire, HAMPSHIRE.
All right, the question I really wanted to ask you though was, I'm a little puzzled because school districts are getting CARES funding, but you guys kind of came to us, and I know that I guess we're one of the few towns who voted to give you a little bit of our CARES money. Why don't you get CARES money like all the other schools? I'm just a little puzzled by that.
We did, Ron. What you have to realize though, and I know you were in office to understand it, this whole CARES Act funding is an evolution. We had all kinds of expenses at the start of this fiscal year, almost totaling $500,000, which we had absolutely no funding for. We did get some coronavirus relief fund grants, but again, those funds came in October and November. We did get some technology essential grant money, and we did get SO1 grant money. Now, as you recall, those initial grants all had a deadline period of December 31st. So everybody, including the towns, were scrambling on how the hell they're gonna spend this money, because they got it in October, and then they only had to have they had to have it spent by December 31st. And the instructions that we got from DESE was not only did the funds have to be encumbered, they had to be spent. So we had, $500,000 worth of expenses, about $350,000 in grants total, and $500,000 in expenses. And that's when we approached the towns. In the meantime, they then extended the deadline of these grants. We were fortunate to have several towns step up and provide us some of their CARES Act, and we were able to cover the deficit in full that we had.
All right. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Brenner, Mr. Eichler.
Karen,
Go ahead, Ted.
Thank,
I had a question. You mentioned in there that if there was remote school next year, that you had a dollar amount earmarked for that. And I'm wondering if it turns out that there is no remote school next year, what would be the plans for that?
Those funds would be reallocated, quite frankly, to whatever our needs are with those students returning back into the school district. Again, even though, it's a large number, it doesn't go beyond that required net school spending and funding. So those funds would be reallocated based on any needs we have. I can tell you just in one particular item, the estimated cost for all of the vet tech equipment that we need is in excess of $400,000. We have nowhere near that amount in next year's budget. So in my mind, if we have that surplus money, I would be making a very hard case to the superintendent that we should spend that one-time money and pick up the equipment that we need, that we know we're gonna need for the vet tech program. But again, it really could go to any cost.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Karen.
thank you.
Nice seeing everyone.
Okay, Daryl, it's your show.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you everyone for coming this evening, giving us the opportunity to speak with you tonight in this kind of virtual capacity. With me this evening, I have members of our central office staff, which include Director of Business and Finance, Dan Deedy, Director of Human Resources, Jeffrey Carlson, our Administrator of Special Education, Christine Smith, and Deputy Superintendent, Bob Berlow. And we also have a few school committee members who've been able to join us this evening as well. So thank you so much for coming tonight. So Karen, in terms of the presentation, I know you all have it. Do you want to do the same thing we did before?
Well, I think let's breeze over some of it because most of us have seen the mission statement and all that kind of stuff. So I would go through a lot of that stuff pretty quickly.
Sure, let's do it.
And get to the meat of the presentation.
Okay. So would you like me to share my screen?
Peter, what do you think?
You should be able
best?
to do that. Go right ahead, please.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so thank you so much. And as Karen mentioned, we'll kind of breeze through these first few pages. These are mission statement that we've shared with you. This is our 5-year-old mission statement, our strategic plan with our 5 domains that tie back to our budgetary needs, the agenda for this evening, and FY22 budget. So first we'll start off with enrollment. So historical enrollment in the district has continued to drop. This year in particular, it dropped over 400 students between FY20 and FY21 in terms of the overall numbers for the October 1 enrollment numbers. When we're looking at those numbers, we've actually gone up another 100 since October 1. We've increased, I believe, another 106. So this number is a little off, but that's the number that we use for our October 1 count. Again, this is enrollment by school, and you'll see all of our schools, Naquag, Glenwood, and also Central Tree have pretty steady levels of student. Central Tree has gone down a little bit. Enrollment by town, Rutland has a small decrease for FY21, whereas some of the other communities had larger decreases, and some, such as Paxton and Princeton, didn't necessarily drop very much at all. District enrollment share. So for Rutland in particular, Rutland has gone from 1,589 students to 1,505 students from October 2019 to October 2020. That's a drop of about 84 students, of a little under 5.3%. High school enrollment share. Again, in Rutland, there was a drop of about 16 students from 497 down to 481. And that's a drop of about 3.2% overall. Just a budget overview now. So again, we have budget priorities associated with everything that we do, and I'll just kind of go through these real fast. Our line item budget has been a big push for us to get this out so that you can see exactly what we're spending, where we're spending. Domain 2, this is an area that we're looking at continuing our literacy program. We had to pull back on it this year because of the budget constraints, and we're looking to put forward grades 3 and 4, and also looking at our math and science book textbook renewals. Domains 3 and 4, but really 3, that's really our tech support. So we now have grades 6 through 12 Chromebooks in terms of a one-to-one program for all students, which has just been so beneficial this year, and moving forward it definitely will be as well. And we're in years 3 and 4 of our textbook program adoption program, which is really a 9-year layout of updating our textbooks, and not just the hard copy textbooks. This is really more around technology and those textbooks that we purchase. Domain 4 is continued staff training on use of tech and SEL support. And then Domain 5, continuing our use of Interface, which is a referral service for students and families who live in the 5 towns, so everyone has access to that. And also Panorama Education, which is really a social emotional assessment for students, so we can basically get a good idea of where students are in terms of their social emotional learning. In the budget realities, again, when we first started doing this, we made this budget based upon the capacity for us to be either in-person, hybrid, or remote. I can tell you, I'm about 95% sure we're going to be fully remote. Fully in person in September. The commissioner has already said that he's not really going to allow for hybrid and or remote learning in September, and that's a big push that he's pushing with us right now. So we're really looking at bringing everyone back starting in September. We're also looking to bring kids back in April, starting either the first or second week of April. We'll be talking about that more with school committee on Monday night. And again, our budget realities, these are the things that we've continued to put money toward. PPE, tech support for in-person and remote if we need it, applications to support student learning remotely, building substitutes, which is a big area that we needed to support this year, and then continued training for staff. And again, this is the budget breakdown by appropriation. And one thing I can tell you is that this is a number that is, we've already heard from at least 3 of the towns in terms of letters from town managers, town administrators, basically saying that these numbers aren't tenable for them. We heard you loud and clear. Last night we met with Holden. We said basically the same thing, that we are pulling back, looking at where we can lower the assessments for the town so that we can get back to a number that's a little more reasonable in terms of how much you could actually support in terms of us moving forward while we're still able to offer a strong educational program for the students in the 5 towns. Salaries and benefits. So the salaries and benefits, it's about an increase of 1.7 million, 2.7%. And again, this is basically contract obligations as well as negotiations. So the new positions and the 21 not hired, 21 tiered reductions in 22, these are all items, these are all part of the different areas associated with last year's budget, as well as our proposed staffing plan that we're not following through with this year because we have to update it and really get it up to the point where after this year, where there was so much kind of disruption associated with staffing, we really want to come back and look at what those needs are. I can tell you that we were able to bring on another nurse, that's in the budget. Elementary guidance, that's we are hiring elementary guidance counselors for all the elementary schools at a part-time basis. 2 tech integration specialists, which have really been an integral part of really getting our staff on board with working with technology. Building substitutes, as I said, and we just put on an assistant principal, a full-time assistant principal at Naquag Elementary, and there hasn't been, gosh, an assistant principal there for probably 10 to 11 years. So that was good news. Benefits and insurance, Dan, I'll let you talk a little bit about this.
All right, thanks, Daryl. So we had our initial budget had a 14% increase. We were fortunate about 2 weeks ago to receive word from our insurance broker, of a reduction so that it reflects an increase of 9.5%. Secondly, unfortunately, our Worcester County retirement assessment went up a little bit more than anticipated, 15%. I'm still looking at that number, and that number may be tweaked ever slightly. And again, we're drilling down on that with Worcester County retirement. And thirdly, though not reflected here, at the same time that we heard word regarding our health insurance, our workers' comp and our general liability also was decreased from 14% to 6.5%, and thus the increase here of 1.6 million, or the 10.14% increase. I'll sit down.
Thank you, Dan. So under total salaries and benefits, the bulk of the increase in terms of the overall budget is really right here, where we're talking about the people who basically support what we do in our schools. It's an increase of 4.17%. In dollars, $3,387,922. Under instruction and operations, again, this is an item that's important. There's a small decrease here, but again, we've been able to tap into some of our grant money this year to assist us. Deputy Burlow, you want to talk a little bit about this item?
Thank you, Daryl. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here tonight. This is the instructional support slide. Essentially, this has been level funded. There was a slight reduction due to an offset against contracted services for special education. This includes us supporting all the needs of our staff and all of your students in terms of what they need for technology. It also includes years 3 and 4 of our textbook plan. And so we're in the midst of revising that so people can maybe recall, or for new members, the textbook plan is a 9-year plan. It's stretched out over 9 years, where we try to address many of the deficiencies that we had previously. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Bob. Dan, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure, thanks again. So in terms of our operations and maintenance, again, this appropriation funds the continued ongoing minor major repairs of the buildings, our town maintenance agreements. We did build up a 5% increase in our utilities. We realized by going out the bid earlier as part of the FREC collaborative, a savings of approximately $123,000 in oil. This also does include approximately $200,000 in PPE, money for PPE supplies, and there were some minor adjustments within lines so that it reflects the dollar increase of almost $194,000 and 5.19%. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dan. Under pupil services, again, this is a small dollar amount that's used to support our health offices. Again, we were able to tap into some of our funding this year to help support our health offices for PPE, putting in our COVID rooms and so forth. So a lot of money went into that. There's special ed tuitions. Again, this is a small increase of, not a small increase, but a 2.4% increase of $66,780. There are offsets associated with, Dan. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure thing. So just initial point is the estimated total tuitions for next year is approximately 7.2 million. This increase here of almost $67,000 is the end result of using offsets, specifically the FY22 240 grant and also circuit breaker, FY22 circuit breaker, and also FY21 carry forward circuit breaker for the net increase to the budget of 67,000 round numbers and 2.41% increase.
Thank you, David. So under total instruction and operations, it's a little under 1%, a $95,801 increase from 21 to 22. Under fixed costs, again, these are other operating costs. Dan, you want to go into this?
So these figures are taken directly from the cherry sheet. Our FY21 approved budget was per the governor's budget from January of 2020. As you know, the state budget was not finalized until late December of 2020. The final state budget figure was more aligned with the $1.7 million figure, so that if you were to compare the final state budget of 21 with the initial proposed state budget of 22, you're going to see a variance of about $17,000 or $18,000. That said, this $555,000 difference increase is the end result of our budget being approved in March, long before the state budget was finalized in December. Thus, almost a 48% increase between the lines.
Okay, thank you. Transportation. Dan, if you want to.
And transportation, again, we're entering the third year of actually now a 5-year contract. School committee recently approved the additional 2 years as part of the original procurement. The out of district, we're estimating at 3%, and our in district at 3%. The reason for the decrease here is that we're looking to do, prior to June 30, a transfer of approximately $350,000. And again, my pencil is sharpened into a transportation stabilization account to reduce the net to the operating budget, but also to reduce the assessment to the towns for 22. And again, this will be a fluid number that we're looking to drill down on. And this past summer, we refinanced several bonds, and the purpose being to realize the savings moving forward. This reflects the work of those refinance bonds for the high school in the oil remediation here in Jefferson. And this will be the case over the next 8 years in terms of the savings. So this is approximately $114,000 savings, 4.71 decrease from the previous year, the result of the refinancing.
So for total fixed costs, with operating costs, transportation, and debt service, it's an increase of $415,444, a little under 3.9%. Then total expenditures between salaries, benefits, instruction and operations, and fixed costs. Again, this $3.9 million, almost $3.9 million increase, a difference of 3.82%. And we do understand, and Dan just said he's sharpening his pencil. He is sharpening his pencil, and we're looking at reducing that overall increase while still providing, the services and support the students and the staff need. This is a budget breakdown by category. So almost 80% of our budget ties back to people, salaries, and benefits. Instruction and operations, that's 9.6%. That has dropped a little bit, about 0.1%. And then fixed costs, it's at 10.6%. Again, the budget breakdown by appropriation that was shown earlier. Then revenues, Dan, do you want to talk about these?
So on the state revenues, Chapter 70, per the governor's budget this past January, we're looking at an almost $202,000 increase. And again, this may change as the state budget process continues. Charter school reimbursement, we saw a significant reduction there, approximately $117,409, almost 55%. Again, comparing the initial FY22 budget to the final FY21 state budget numbers. Regional transportation, this was the big decrease. Our FY21 number was approximately 2.4 million. The FY22 figure is 1.6, almost $800,000 reduction moving forward. School choice was level funded in 22. On Medicaid, we're looking to keep that level funded approximately $450,000 for FY22. On miscellaneous income, we're looking to keep that level funded at approximately $200,000 in excess and deficiency. As of now, we're looking to use approximately $300,000 from the 1.4 million that was certified this past December.
So we got three issues based on the 3.82% increase. Rutland would have an increase of 961,752 or 7.27%. And again, that also includes $300,000 for the local revenues, you know, in terms of the difference between FY21 and 22, which is what we're looking at offsetting as well. You can see the large decrease of 923,193, which is primarily due to, as Dan mentioned, the regional transportation reimbursement. We are hopeful that that number will actually increase in terms of the amount, but right now there's no guarantee that that number will go up based upon you know, where the governor came in. And again, these are the budget offsets we talked about a little bit in terms of how this kind of breaks down, you know, with circuit breaker carry forward from FY21 or FY20 to 21, that's 1.2 million. FY22 circuit breaker, that's the dollar amount for special education we get back. That's $2.25 million. We have transportation stabilization, and I think, Dan, is that 350?
That's correct. That's 350. I apologize for that.
Okay, so that number should be $350,000. FY22, the 240 grant, those are our special education tuitions. We're putting $1.4 million back as well. We also have school choice and school lunch, where we're combined, that'll be about $400,000. So total offsets right now in terms of lowering the budget is about $5.5 million. Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
Just the fact, Daryl, into the group here that as we look to reduce, I have sharpened my pencil. These are perhaps conservative figures, and I am drilling down. So circuit breaker FY21 carry forward will likely be increased. FY22 estimated reimbursement, we're looking to increase that. Looking at transportation stabilization as well. School choice, again, their possible use, depending upon where I land with some of this activity here, that number may come out of the mix, or it may be reduced.
And again, these are grants that, one of the things we wanted to talk about was just the grants that we've actually received over the past year in reference to the COVID-19 pandemic. Bob, you want to talk a little bit about the grants?
Sure, I'm happy to, Daryl. Thank you. I think an important thing to note is these grants came from the state and the federal government to help us with some COVID relief efforts. And as you heard earlier, this money is presented to schools to try to offset unanticipated costs. And I think the net effect of all this is, as Dan said earlier, as he starts to sharpen his pencil and tries to move things into maybe some of these carry forwards, such as circuit breaker. Without these grants, we would not be able to be doing that at this point in time. The first grant there came from the state, and this was intended for schools to spend on technology. We spent it to buy outright instead of getting a loan, 1,200 Chromebooks, and this partially paid for that. This also allowed us to buy partially pay for 50 mobile hotspots to allow students and families to have internet access that couldn't afford it. We also received from the SR1 $176,898, and we used this money to purchase Lexia Learning, which is an online reading program that allows students to get support as they learn to read, and it also monitors progress that students are making, and it helps us as educators to set meaningful goals for students, and it's all done remotely through the computer. We also spent some of this money to purchase PPE, personal protective equipment, and to get cleaning supplies that up until this point we didn't know we would need, some much stronger things to sterilize and to help clean with. Our big grant was the school reopening grant. This was $1.57 million. We spread this across a lot of different fronts, as I'm going to go through here in just a minute. This finished paying for the 1,200 Chromebooks and the 50 hotspots. We also bought a variety of software, as you can see by those bullets, to better support students and their learning needs while they were remote. We bought online textbook subscriptions. We bought additional technology to support teachers outside of Chromebooks. These are things like cameras, microphones, portable microphones. We bought a wide variety of PPE, and all told, between this grant and the preceding one, we spent over $600,000 this year on personal protective equipment. That's things such as masks, gloves, wipes, those types of things. We bought additional cleaning supplies. We bought bathroom partitions so that students can safely use our bathrooms, and more students can safely use our bathrooms. We bought plexiglass shielding, and we also used some of the funds in here to pay our people to install these things after hours. We use this money to cover unanticipated unemployment costs. We use this money to purchase additional packaging for our cafeterias for food as required now. And lastly, this grant was also used to pay for professional development for our staff. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Bob. Again, we like to show how many people actually live in our communities who work in our district. So we have 1,040 employees, and out of the 567 employees who live in the 5-member towns, 173 of them actually live in Rutland. Then the budget calendar. So as of right now, we will hold our budget hearing on Monday evening with the school committee. We're meeting with member towns. You are the last town that we have met with this year. School committee budget approval, it will be March 15th. Again, if it is not approved on the 15th, we do have another scheduled date of the 16th for a second meeting if necessary. And then the Rutland Town meeting is May 8th. We've already been notified that Sterling has changed their date to a date in June. And we've heard that another community also might change their date to a date in June for their town meeting as well.
So Daryl, I apologize.
Go ahead.
I apologize. Before we leave this, I too would just like to follow up on my colleague from BayPath, Dean Yakabuchi, on the SR2 grant for a second, and just want to speak to that. And as my colleague had stated, we too have looked at using those funds to reduce Rutland's assessments. So right now, and in the initial figures that you saw, approximately 77,624 can be applied here, and so that would reduce the figure to 7,594,263. There's a variance there of about $140, which will adjust. And And as my colleague stated, this is a one-time adjustment, and this is per the governor's House One budget. If this doesn't hold through the entire budget process, then we'd have to make the adjustment accordingly. But in my initial work here, I have used those figures to reduce the assessment as of now.
Thank you, Dan. And
So,
that's for the SR2.
hold on a second, Dan. So you're saying that the 77,624 has already been applied to the numbers that we're seeing now with that huge increase? At 77 already taken out?
That's correct. I used 77,482. There's about $140 difference, but I've applied that. But Karen, also, as I stated, as Darryl stated as well, I have sharpened my pencil, as you well know, and these figures will be adjusted.
So, Madam Chairman, I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to defer first to Finance Committee members that might want to ask questions.
Does anyone on the Finance Committee have any specific questions? Well, the good news is, Dan, you know me. I've got questions.
Karen, absolutely. And I'm happy to answer your questions. And just for the larger group, Karen and I, we had a separate meeting last year after the larger, and I'm more than happy to do that again. I mean, certainly the larger group wants to hear your questions by all means, but Karen, the offer is extended again.
Thank you.
To have a one-to-one, probably next week. Oh yeah, I mean tomorrow's Friday. Early next week is fine. You and I can talk offline, or when the larger group disbands, you and I can talk here for a couple minutes and figure out a day next week and let's book it.
Okay. Well, I have some questions. First of all, Dan, this one's not for you. So it was stated earlier that we have one-to-one Chromebooks for every student in grades 6 to 12
Yes.
in all the schools in the district.
Yes.
Huh. I know a girl that doesn't have one and she's in middle school, so I'll have to check into that.
Yeah. No. So, Bob, can we just? And again, I'm not sure what middle school, but 6 through 12 should all have Chromebooks.
Yep.
So Karen, you can, if you let us know who, we can figure it out.
Karen, I would suggest whoever it is, contact the building principal. The building principal was given enough Chromebooks to hand out to all 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders. Now, I'm not here tonight to say that there might not still be some Chromebooks in the principal's office that haven't gone out to some kids, but there's enough that we purchased to support all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Okay.
Yep.
So stipends. So a lot of the stipends are things that last year we weren't able to fully utilize because everything came to a screeching halt in March. Were there any savings in stipends last year that is now going into your E&D?
So Karen, there were savings last year in stipends, coaching stipends, for example, there at the end of the year, there was a negotiated value paid out to coaches. I'll just use them as an example. When we closed out FY20, our certified E&D was approximately 1.4 million. One of the things, Karen, that I did last year with the closeout was to reduce the hits during the certification process, was to make all other accounts revolving or grants whole, so that we didn't sustain any hits, and that was the case this year in the process. So there were savings. Off the top of my head, I can't quote you the number, but there were savings.
Okay, and I would assume we're going to have savings this year as well because so much isn't occurring.
So Karen, and again, just going back to this past Tuesday's Finance Subcommittee meeting, and I walked the group through the figures. There is an unencumbered balance in salaries and appropriations of approximately 3.5 million. But then what I did was I did back down that figure, and I made them aware of anticipated obligations. And some of the anticipated obligations is that there are still several contracts that are in process to being resolved or have just been recently resolved. So there's a sum of money dedicated to that. Number two, we're estimating a shortfall like many other districts in our school lunch account. So I gave finance a figure as to how we would fix that, and the fix is to shift a balance or part of the negative shortfall from school lunch into the general fund. There were some other adjustments as well. Athletics is estimating a shortfall, so we'll fix that as well. So I went from my 3.5 unencumbered, Karen, to and I apologize to the larger group. And Karen, again, if we need to have when we have a one-to-one, happy to answer these questions, but I don't mean to dominate the meeting here. Went from 3.5 down to just under $1 million in our salaries and stipends, Karen.
Okay. I see that there is a $200,000, which is for PPE. You stated that in the operating costs. It doesn't even have an account next to it, so kind of concerning to me to not see an account next to it. It's just a $200,000. Throw it in. Kind of what us accountants call a plug number.
Karen, it's a placeholder.
Okay. So that's for stuff that we're thinking for next year that we're still going to need to provide because of the pandemic.
Right, and not knowing, Karen, where we will land with federal funding for next year, I use that as a placeholder. I should point out as well, Karen, and to the larger group and those on the school committee are aware of this. We did apply this past summer through FEMA for reimbursement. Submit an application of approximately $129,000 and change. And just this week, and I did share this with finance on Tuesday night, actually it was on Tuesday afternoon, we did receive word finally that our application was approved. And the good news is that it's going to be at 100%. FEMA did disqualify approximately about $18,000. They had some questions and they backed out that figure. So that's fine, that's fine. So our reimbursement will be approximately $112,000. Unfortunately, when I asked for an ETA on the reimbursements, it'll probably be sometime in early June. Unfortunately, it's just how the process is working. At the same time, I did make my rep, and I have a rep that I work with, made him aware that we'll be submitting a second application. If you look at our 21 budget now, Karen, I did create a separate line in the undesignated appropriation, and there is no allocation there. And we're using that line, Karen, as my term, your term, our term, as the placeholder for those COVID-related costs that weren't budgeted. And the figure in that was as high as, at one point this year, almost $500,000. But that has since been reduced because, as Deputy Superintendent Burlow noted, we're using primarily the school reopening grant, the SRG grant, to offset those costs. But there's still a negative balance in there, and I'll be looking to submit for my second FEMA application the balance in that appropriation, and hopefully we'll get reimbursement. Probably not in this year, given the current trend, but hopefully sometime next year.
Okay, there's a question in chat that says, what's the increase over net minimum, excluding debt and transportation?
So Karen, I don't have that figure off the top of my head, but I'll get it for you.
Okay.
Wait, how do we not have that figure?
I apologize, I don't have that figure.
Sorry, I can talk to that to some degree, if you'd like, Mr. Chairman. Or, Madam Chairman, if you'd allow me to speak for a minute about this.
I think we'll just wait for Dan to get us the numbers, because it's just easier to have Dan get us the numbers, and that way no one's confused.
Well,
It comes straight from Dan.
okay, and quite frankly, I got the number from Dan today, so.
I mean, I'm sorry, if you're referring to MLC, I may have it right here in front of me.
Yeah, I think that's what he's referring to.
No, I'm referring to the increase over the net minimum excluding debt and transportation.
Right.
That's a pretty simple calculation. Can we do
Okay.
that now, or is that?
I apologize, I don't have that number, and I'd rather get that number to Karen. You can share that with you.
Sure. So I want to thank you very much for providing us with the budget book this year. It's very much appreciated, and I do appreciate that. Dan knows how much I fight for that, so thank you. I mean, I don't think I have to say anything more than this budget is not helping our town at all, and I don't care how many people that work for the school district live in Rutland. It's not helpful for the town at this point, and so we would ask that the school committee members take that into consideration when they have their meeting on Monday. This will devastate the town.
So if I could ask some questions now, Madam Chairwoman.
Sure.
So Daryl, I'm kind of baffled, and first I want to kind of put something on the record that I completely support education and very much want to give the education group a reasonable amount of money to continue providing a quality education to the children in the town. I got to admit that, when I came here, I've only been here about 4 months, but when I came here, we talked there's going to be a budget roundtable, and you're going to elicit the views of the town managers, town administrators, select members, finance committee members at that roundtable meeting. And universally from every town, the message was quite clearly that this was going to be a tough budget year and that we wanted increases to be at a minimum. And, I've expressed in personal conversations with you and Dan that the town was already facing a $405,000 structural deficit. And you asked me even what a potential number was. And I said, geez, I originally thought somewhere around 500 grand, but Bay Path came in with 103,000 more than expected. So even 500 was going to be a big stretch. And I got to admit, I almost fell off my chair when I got a number of 961,000, which is almost double what I told you we could really afford, which I'm not going to lie to you, shocked me to no end based upon all that I heard at the roundtable and my personal conversations. So I'm kind of interested. I guess my first comment is, and I talked to Dan today, and Dan's been great in providing me numbers. So I want to thank Dan for giving me the numbers. And I guess my first question is, why are we sharpening our pencil now? Why didn't we sharpen the pencil after the roundtable meeting? Because now this 961,000 is scaring the heck out of all my employees who realize that, we got a little over $400,000 in increased property tax level that we can spend, and 961 grand would take all of our levy and not leave a dime for the rest of the town. So it would mean huge impact in cutting town services. So I guess that's my kind of first question is, people told me I'd be disappointed at roundtable that people wouldn't listen. And I got to admit, I disagreed with them and I wanted to hear and get involved in it. But I don't understand how we came up with 961 based upon all you heard at the roundtable. Your mic's off, Daryl.
Thanks. And again, my internet keeps slowing down here, so people keep freezing. So if I freeze, it's internet here. So the roundtable happened prior to the governor's budget run. So again, we had no idea, and we were scrambling toward the end of the year, looking at the governor's budget, pulling that information together, pulling together all of the other information pertaining to the grants and everything else that we had kind of in hand. I know Director Dede has been, I think ultimately conservative because we're concerned still about where we, might end. And he's really been focused on, making sure that we're in a much better place than we thought we were going to be, especially at the end of last year. Remember, at the end of last year, we reduced many staff at the end of FY20. We actually pink slipped 50 teachers. So we ended up hiring most of them back after a few months, but we didn't want to be in a situation. And again, I know Mitch, I I don't know what, if you're laughing at me or what's going on, but like the reason why we actually had to do that was because they're legally, we're bound to provide that we have to actually do that prior to, I believe the June 15th, Jeff, for non-professional status teachers. So we had to do that if we knew, you know, that we were going to have a budget that would have been able to have supported it, then it would have been okay. So, yeah, so Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I guess, and for the larger group, Ron and I have worked in the past together. We started out from the get-go. We looked at the needs of principals. We looked to be responsive to the district, where, you know, 2 months later into it, we have better data, not the best data relative to a 22 state budget, where we're heading into the home stretch of the fiscal year. I have a better sense now as to where we will land with our special ed tuitions, and that's a tip of the cap to Director Christine Smith, who's here on the call. And you know, one thing that we didn't do earlier, which we're working on, and I spoke to finance the other night about this, is we're looking to tap into our E&D as a means to reduce the revenue, very much so. And the argument that we had, or discussion that we had, wrong term, is as I drill down on 21 to see where we're going to land in 21. You know, if I take out, I'm just using that example. Don't quote me, please. Don't quote me. If I use $500,000 out of E&D, certified E&D from FY20 to reduce the hit for 22, the argument is, and I understand it, is that, oh, are we going to have 500,000 to replace that as we go forward? And so, you know, we're looking long and hard at that. The other thing too, we resolved just recently our fourth quarter readiness payment with our home to school provider from last spring, which the governor and the Commissioner of Education had encouraged districts to do. So there is a balance there, and that's just in the past 2 or 3 weeks. That balance from that readiness payment, I had brought forward a sum of money from 20 to 21, and we made a payment of X dollars, 833,000 and change. Who's counting? But there is a balance there that will fall to our FY21, which will ultimately end up in you know, E&D. So there were a lot of factors. There are a lot of balls up in the air, and I'm catching a lot of them now as we proceed forward.
So just so that there's perfect clarity here, because I want you to appreciate the town's position, because I've certainly learned to appreciate even more as I put together this budget for fiscal year 22. That the town will be receiving, you know, a little over $400,000 in new tax levy under Proposition 2.5. You have new growth of about 325,000. So that's about a total of 700 and some thousand of new revenue that we could spend in this year, because that's what we're limited to by Proposition 2.5. So think about if we were to give you 900 and something thousand dollars, think about the reductions that would mean to the town side of government. It would mean serious reductions in police and fire, library, senior centers. It scares the heck out of me what that impact would have on the town, because we're looking at a very, very large town deficit under that scenario. And I did make it clear, and I didn't make it clear because I was guessing or hoping that I made it clear that even $500,000 of an increase would have a very negative impact and leave the town in a deficit situations, because of Proposition 2.5 it is what it is. So I just want to make it clear to you that's a major problem for the town. So I want you to understand it, but a couple other questions I'm trying to understand, and I guess the question is to you, Dan. There's an $800,000 reduction in school transportation you told us about, but you didn't really explain why. Why is the state reducing your transportation money by 800 grand? There's got to be some logical reason why the state thinks you need $800,000 less in transportation funds.
So Ron, typically that figure is a figure that DESE provides DOR, and DESE gives them a figure based upon the current year's estimated receipts. So this year in FY21, I'm going to take a leap of faith because I have not received yet my initial disbursement of Chapter 71 Regional Transportation Reimbursement. It's almost 2 months late. Typically, it happens in January. Last year was in February. Here we are, early March. I haven't received it yet. But typically, DOR takes from DESE what DESE is going to pay out the previous year. So I'm assuming that this year, aside from an amendment to my end of the year report, and the committee, my school committee is aware of this, our finance committee is certainly aware of this, that we're looking at a 1.6 reimbursement, and they brought that figure forward. I don't want to speak for DESE, but that's the genesis to that figure. I don't always trust the figures on the cherry sheet, and Ron, you and I have had that discussion when we met in your office, whatever it was, 2 months ago. We talked about the cherry sheet figures and how they're not always accurate and don't hold water.
So, you know, Dan, and I tell you, it kind of puzzles me. So I look at the statewide numbers, and as you guys have defined, the state's cutting the district by about $1 million, right, in funds, and it makes me wonder why. Part of it, I would guess, is there's a decrease in enrollment and other factors that the state feels that you guys should get a reduction in funds, right? But on the other side, you're asking for $1 million increase just from, you know, almost $1 million increase just from Rutland alone. I guess I'm struggling with why, if the state feels that they can cut funds for education, then how do the taxpayers in Rutland pick up $1 million of new revenue? I'm trying to balance that because obviously there's, as you say, there's a significant amount of less students that we're funding. The numbers are down, not as much for us as other communities, as you guys point out, but still down significantly. And yet, you know, we're still looking at hiring additional staff and stuff. So I'm not trying to be mean here, but I'm trying to grasp some common sense principles here. So kind of explain to me why the state would cut $1 million, and I guess it looks to me like you're picking up what the state did to you guys on the backs of Rutland taxpayers and other towns' taxpayers. So
Ron, and I'll let Daryl address that, but I just saw a question cross my screen about E&D. Someone asked a question. We had approximately 1.4 million certified this past December.
Karen, can I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead, Tommy.
I know Ron just mentioned that 2.5% increase argument, but the only thing I can say, I know we've talked about 2.5% increases that we can go up in taxes. And I don't know how many years now, it just falls on deaf ears here because nobody pays attention to it whatsoever. So we can't even use that argument. It's never worked, doesn't work, it just keeps going ridiculously up constantly.
And you know what, Tommy, I hear what you're saying. So again, when we're looking at this, there has been.
There you froze. Not sure why, but you completely froze.
That's because he wants to go down that percentage, I think.
Let him get
I'll
back.
text Daryl behind the scenes here. So if you had another question, maybe that we could answer.
Karen, I got a couple of questions if I could.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Tommy.
Can I finish?
All right, so I'd like to, going back to in the presentation part of it, you had possible new positions. Was there a number for these new positions in the budget?
What we did in the budget is there's a very small amount of money to cover potential new positions, and that's where we're still going to entertain with the school committee on Monday night to see what their preferences are and where they want to go. So at this point, yes, there is.
What is that amount? What is that amount?
I would have to ask Dan what that is.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself there. 300,000.
And Tommy, through the chair, can I piggyback off Tommy's question?
Go right ahead.
I guess my question is, I think that there was some discussion during one of the school committee meetings. I mean, the positions that initially were budgeted in last year that were not filled, I think we had talked about those at last year's version of this. those positions weren't filled. Are those being carried over into this budget? Are those positions still budgeted in? I think there were some emotional guidance counselors. There were maybe a few teaching positions. I know some of the positions you're looking to budget in are administrative. I'd love to be able to see a breakout of what the administrative versus the teacher portion of those increases are. And I only say that because, you know, looking at the DESE numbers, it looks like, you know, you have an average number compared to the statewide of administrators to teacher. But obviously our teacher rate is lower than the DESE recommended amount in the, you know, the statewide average of 12 to 1. I think we're about, what, 15 to 1? Is that prior to COVID enrollment decreasing?
So Mitch, in answer to your question about are there new administrators in the budget, are they being carried forward? We had our plan last year was to add certain staff, and that's what we talked about when we met with everybody last year was our staffing plan, and that was new. Then COVID hit and having to readjust to that. We did our reductions. We brought, and they were essentially 5 tiers of reductions. We were able to bring people back that were in tiers 5, 4, and materials that were in tier 3 reduction. That left us with staff that was in tier 2 reduction. We brought some of them back, but not all the people that were in tier 2 reductions. So if we looked right now, in terms of where we are, we're actually down an administrator. We lost a curriculum coordinator out of that process, the only one that we had. The other thing that we added, though, was based on where we were in terms of our need. Some of the things, such as we were going to add more teachers at Mount View because of class sizes, we didn't end up doing that. Our need was to get instructional support for the teachers. So we added 2 technology integration specialists to help train teachers and be there in the trenches with them and answer their questions and train them in real time. That was a bigger need than bringing back the curriculum person or those extra teachers at Mount View. The other thing that we're seeing more and more of as we're moving through this year is students are having more social emotional needs. So we added back in, even though it was a new position, it wasn't a reduction, 3 elementary guidance counselors, and that's a 0.5 at each of our elementary schools to help to support students in their needs. So
were those positions, though, the ones that we had talked about last year that you initially
Yep. They were the ones that we were initially going to do. We didn't hire any of those new positions once we got into COVID because we had to figure out how this is going to play out. As we've now got a better handle on it, as we've received some grant funds, we're able then to move forward with some positions, such as what I just went over there. But we still haven't brought back all of our reductions that we ended up doing as well. That's where the school committee is going to help to guide us on Monday night is, what do you want to do with these last positions here? And then on top of that, Mitch, we had some positions that were out there to help us to grow and be in a better place to meet student needs in terms of next year. So that's the discussion really. Are we bringing back the rest of these tier 2 reductions? Are we keeping the people we've already added? Do we look at some of the list we had for an outline year for next year? What do we do in terms of class sizes? And that's where I think having this money in there, we don't quite know exactly how many kids are going to be in next year. If they all come back, we have to address class sizes. So it could be that that's what that money that Dan mentioned would be used for, is to bring teachers back in to address class sizes.
Thank you.
But if you have money in there last year for new positions and you didn't add them, then that's carried into this new budget plus 300,000?
That's kind of what I was indirectly asking, Tom. I appreciate you clarifying.
No, I know. I understand that.
Dan, can you help me out with that answer there?
Sure. So we had last year we had allocated approximately 300,000 for those positions, and they are in the 22 budget as of now.
Okay, so I guess on my line is that we got less students, less what we're doing, and we still add on more. I understand you need some things, but it just seems like an awful lot. I have another question. One of the, I believe I read in there, there was a position for a vocational director. Can you explain what that's for?
So I'll jump. Sorry, my internet's back on. So, Spectrum in Rutland. Gosh, where's my Wi-Fi? So in any case, Tom, that's a position that we had built into our overall staffing plan over multiple years. Again, we just shared that as a presentation. We are not going to push forward with that position right now because again, we have to reassess kind of where we're at. A vocational director for the district, especially for the high school, is really probably going to be something vitally important to us moving forward. For students who are, maybe not going to Bay Path, maybe not going to Monty Tech, and just don't necessarily fit into the pure academic model that the high school has. So it's another way for us to kind of expand the capacity of the high school to provide services to all types of learners. And that is down the road, Tommy. That's not going to be something we do immediately. It's another position that we would have to kind of bake into the overall budget.
Okay. My next question was in your presentation again, the health benefits increase, you said was up 9.5%.
Yes.
Now, is that, I don't know what the averages are, maybe somebody else does, but is that like in the realm of everybody else's increases, or is that higher, lower, or?
Well,
is there a reason for it?
So Tom, that's dependent upon claims. So let's go back to, if we go back 4 years, so we were at, we had 2 years in a row of a 0% increase. Last year we were up about 7.5%. This year we're up about 9.5%. And again, that's based upon our claims. So this year we have higher claims. It's up above 90%. So that means that they take a look at that and they assess, how much we are costing them, and then they then come back and provide an increase to us based upon the costs that they're incurring. So it's really based upon usage more than anything.
Okay. And then our next question is on the retirement was up 15%, you said. Now, was that because there were more people in the system now, or is that another reason, or?
Now, Worcester County retirement is a little bit of it's an anomaly in the sense that, when we think it's not going to go up very much, it jumps up 13, 14, 15%. So Jeff, you've had, some conversations around this. Is there anything that is different this year than what we've dealt with in the past?
No, I think it's a calculation that they do based upon the mix of the group and the 70 members that make up the Worcester Regional Retirement. Dan and I are actually looking at it. There's a potential there that we might be able to tweak that number a little.
If I could comment on that, Madam Chairman.
Go ahead.
So my understanding with Worcester, the cost in terms of the retirement system is made up in two components. One is a unfunded liability from the past that they're trying to make up for, which is scheduled out usually over a 20-year period to make up that unfunded portion. And then there's also the new costs associated every year. And there is some new costs if you add new employees. We are seeing on the town side that increase to be around 10%. I'm not sure why it's 15 with the school system, but we're hearing a number around 10. But if I could, I'd still like to have the superintendent answer the question where he kind of got froze on. And Daryl, the question, just to kind of give it back to you again, is the state is cutting the district by about $1 million in education funding. And yet, in spite of that, you wonder the state must have reasons for cutting back the education component and the money, and yet you're asking for almost $4 million from the district in new funds from the local towns. Could you explain that to me? I'm just trying to struggle with the common sense why the state feels you should get less money, and yet we need to give you additional $4 million.
So I'm kind of struggling with the fact that you're struggling with this, Ron. So, and I think we've talked about this. The issue comes down to when we're looking at what the state funds, and Dan already talked about this a little bit with you, it's a huge decrease in terms of the overall amount for regional transportation, correct? So that's almost, that encompasses pretty much 80% of that difference right there. So then you're talking about 200,000, maybe not even, in terms of the amount that's left over. We did have a reduction in the overall number of students that we had, so that does make up a difference. But again, let's just say we lose 200 students altogether, or even 300. 300 students spread across a district with 13 schools and pre-K-12. It doesn't necessarily come down to us being able to say, hey, guess what? We're going to be able to save a building principal, a teacher, 5 custodians, and it doesn't work out that way unless they're all kind of clustered in one particular town or school. So then it's a little easier to do that. But because it's so spread out, we don't have the capacity to do that. So we still have the same costs, we still have the same staff, all of that comes into play with us. So that's how this kind of plays out ultimately. And again, as I think I started talking about this, there has been a shift. The state is changing there, and I'll have to go back through and I can show you the district analysis review tool. And they have that for every single community in Massachusetts, every single school district. And it actually has a really nice bar graph, and it shows just how much the state is dropping and how much other communities, like municipalities, are going up. And it's not just Rutland or Holden or Paxton, it's all over the Commonwealth in terms of that differential. The state is paying less, and they're pushing back on the communities to pay more, because ultimately they don't want to raise state taxes. They want you to, go above the 2.5 and, do an override. That's what they're pushing back on. So this is something that the superintendent's group has been fighting with the state over for many years. It's all based upon the funding formula. It's still antiquated. It got updated a little bit, but not enough. This is a formula based on numbers from 1993. I mean, so it's an old formula.
And the last question of Dan, and this goes to that minimum local contribution, Dan, that me and you talked about today. So, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still trying to get a handle on it. But a number of selectmen have asked me about this, so I want to get clarity. And I think Bay Path kind of helped me with understanding it. So the minimum local requirement for Rutland is $7,594,405 according to your budget sheets, right? And then transportation, $1,244,160. And then debt service is $551,886 according to your numbers, which is a total kind of required payment of Rutland of $9,390,451. That, in my mind, is the minimum we would have to pay, all those components, components combined. So then the other amount in your budget is $4,804,724 is what you describe as your operational assessment. So is that, I guess that I'm trying to understand, is that the amount of money that the school administration, the school committee believes is needed to provide the kind of program they want? But all of that $4,804,000 is kind of above the minimum cost that the town would be required to pay for. Is that an accurate way to describe that, Dan, or am I off base?
That's fair to say, Ron. But Ron, also, just, and I've got it here in front of me, that's why I'm looking in this direction here. Again, I just want to point out that on the MLC, that as I looked at that number for Rutland, again, give or take $140, that I factored in the SR2 grant into that figure there.
But my numbers.
But your quick summation is fair.
So every year, the operational assessment number is kind of the increased money you think you need to provide the kind of quality education you believe to the kids. So it's not there's nothing to do with state minimums or anything like that. It's
no
assessment of the district as to what you think your needs are.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make
pretty
sure
good summation.
And the selectmen understood what that meant, because I was getting a lot of the questions on the minimum contribution and how much over the minimum we're doing and stuff. I mean, we're significantly over the minimum by about $4.8 million over the minimum from a Rutland thought process. Anyway, I want to thank you, Dan, for giving me that information today, and just so I can make sure that the board members, both finance committee and selectmen, understood it. And thank you, guys. Appreciate the information. I look forward to a real sharpening of the pencil, because you know where I'm at. I think it's got to be under 500 grand is what I think it has to be, and we're at 961. So I wish you the very best in trying to get us to a place that we can make this work.
Karen, I got one more question.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Tom. Sorry.
Okay, that's right. So one more question. Under the operating numbers that were there that you had, you said, I believe you said it was $100 and something thousand less in oil costs this year, operational.
Under operations and maintenance, approximately 123,000. We had a savings in oil. Our new number for next year is $1.69 a gallon.
Okay, so, and I'm assuming that would had to be used somehow. So does that mean when we get into this next budget, you're gonna be short there because that number's gonna go back up by that amount when the buildings are fully in use again?
Tommy, this is paying ahead for next year. So we buy next year. So anything we buy for oil next year is locked in at $1.69.
Right, but I'm just saying that if you save that X number of dollars this year, is that gonna increase next year because they're going back to full operation with other things being bought under operation?
No.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I apologize. One of our school committee members, I happen to notice, has a comment that she'd like to make. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yep, I see her, but I've got Mitch. Mitch has got a question first, so Mitch is next.
Yeah, I just kind of want to go back to, first of all, if we had a drinking game on the phrase sharpening our pencils, we'd all be in trouble right now. But second, I think if we, really the only debatable portion of this is going to be that number that's the increase over the net man, excluding the debt and transportation. So we really need that number because that's something we have to get out to the public. And I have a little bit of a difficult time believing that we don't have that number. I mean, we asked about that a half hour ago. I mean, Dan, that's got to be a really simple calculation that you could pull up in your spreadsheet. I mean, the fact that we don't have that number tonight is bothersome because we need to get that out to the public. I mean, that's really what we're negotiating here, right? So
Daryl, I'm going to defer this to you, please.
Yeah, sure, Mitch. So what we'll do is we'll have Dan. Dan can do the calculation. He can send it out to Karen, and then she can forward it out to people as well. I mean,
we could do it right now. I mean, that's a really simple calculation. If we just open up the spreadsheet, I just don't understand what's taking so long on that number. I have a hard time believing it. It just seems like we're not being transparent. That is one of the most important numbers every year. And the fact that we don't have it at this point, I just have a hard time believing that. You know, if you were selling me a car right now, I wouldn't buy it.
And Mitch, you know, I'm just trying to think, do we typically put that number out to you every single year? Like, is that something I put into the presentation? I don't think so. This is the first time anyone's asked for it.
But we've always asked for it. It's just not a new presentation. We always ask.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. So, okay, then Mitch, I apologize. So yes, he'll do it and we'll get it right out to you.
Thank you.
So I have one more question. The $300,000 that's in the budget for the salaries and stipends for the potential new positions. How many positions is that? Because there's quite a few of them here, and I know you guys pay better than that.
Oh, that's only a couple of positions, Karen. When we're looking at this, if it even ends up being that, you know, when we're looking at this, what we're trying to do is provide support for teachers ultimately. So even the positions that we listed there, we're looking at maybe what we might need to bring in for more teachers if we run into some issues around supporting kids. And again, it's probably only going to be, that's maybe 3 to 4.
Okay.
And Daryl, so you know, while you were gone, I mentioned that this is something we still have to bring forward to school committee, and that's part of our conversation with them, just so that you're aware of what I said while you were gone.
Thank you.
Okay, so if the finance committee is okay with it, Sherry Haber, one of our school committee members, has a comment. Is that acceptable?
We'll see how she goes.
Okay, Sherry, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring to your attention, I went and toured all 3 Rutland schools this past week. I needed to see for myself what we needed to do. I needed to talk to the principals and see what they needed before I felt comfortable making any budget decisions in school committee meetings. So I am, again, only speaking for myself. But I will tell you that the principal's concerns were around, especially at Naquag and Glenwood, were around remediation for next year. There's definite concerns about reading levels, and we don't want those kids to fall behind. My personal opinion, is that, you know, there may be a teacher involved, a reading specialist that needs to happen. And I don't know where that falls in the budget right now. But I just want you to know that those principals do have concerns that we may need that additional staff member. And that's what I'll be bringing to the meeting on Monday. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
through the chair to the Wachusett folks, comment and a question. Last year we had the conversation around what the budget was and the increase that it was. And we expressed the need for that increase to be modified to make it a little bit more palatable for the town of Rutland. And when that happened, the discussion was that we were going to go back and sharpen pencils, and we were going to do some things to be able to mitigate that increase. And again, to Mitch's point about a drinking game, I'm just concerned that knowing that last year we made that request, and when the budget came forward, there didn't seem to be any real significant change to what that request was. So I guess that's my comment. The question would be, what is, and Darryl, maybe you're the one that can answer this more than anybody, but what is the level of confidence that you folks might have that you're going to be able to achieve something reasonable enough so that we, the Finance Committee, can recommend, and the Board of Selectmen can go ahead and recommend to the town, that we can recommend it to the voters. I don't know what the voters will do, and I'm not trying to talk to them at all, but if we have to make a recommendation, I'd like to know that there was some opportunity to go in and tweak things so that the number gets closer to what we need to be. Sharpening pencils is a great thing to be able to say, but getting that done is a different story.
Pete, thank you. You know what, we are working toward a number that's going to be more reasonable. Whether or not it gets down to like what Ron said, a $400,000, that would be a major reduction from where we are right now. But I can tell you we are going to bring it down quite a bit.
Is there any plans to be able to present a step budget that would indicate for the district to be able to get to a particular number? These are the things that would need to be able to be changed. I don't want to be, I don't want to say hacked, but they need to be able to be changed to get to a particular target. And Darryl, I think you froze again.
You're okay, I think.
Pete, maybe I can jump in for Darryl there. We're certainly taking feedback from every group that we've met. As Darryl said, we're going to reconvene. We need to also work with our school committee because ultimately this is their budget, and we will come back with a different figure. Maybe in closing here, just on that, our goal is to try to provide the students of all 5 towns with the best education that we can. And sometimes that might seem to be in opposition to what you folks are charged with. And I understand that. And that could be at times why we seem to be at odds with things. We are certainly willing to go back in and look at things. Maybe our driving goal might be a little bit different from yours in the end, but we're going to take a look at things. I just want you to know that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Karen.
Okay, so Mitch has got his hand up, so let's do Mitch first.
No, I kind of want to respond to that because I think this is important, right? And we've talked a lot about this over the last course of the year, and to the school committee members' comment about her needs, and I get that. I work in education, right? I'm familiar with those statistics. You're going to have year over year on average a 50% loss in terms of math retention, a 30% loss in reading. But you know who's not having those losses? are the 420 students that got pulled out to go to private school or homeschooled. Now, if there are additional needs this year the school district has, that's entirely on the shoulders of the school committee and the decisions that were made over the course of the last year. Now, I know that that's something that gets brought to town meeting every year, and we have people that are pushing to cram the budget through. But I'm telling you that this year is going to be different, because I don't want to have to be in a position, I don't think the town does, where we're going to have to lay off public safety officials that have been spending the last year working through this pandemic in person, and have done such a tremendous job that we're now the regional hub for central Massachusetts in providing vaccinations. So if we want to talk about where the needs are and what that budget is going to look like, you're going to find yourselves, both the school committee and the administration, the villains of this political landscape. So I would just caution you to be careful with that kind of language, because I think there's a lot of parents in town, about 80% the last time we polled them, that were unhappy with how this school committee and administration handled this entire environment. So thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for the district?
Karen,
Yep.
since this is Darren, if they've already presented this to the other towns, I didn't get to go to any of those meetings. How was this received by the other towns? Because some of my
poorly,
that it didn't go so well.
So, I mean, I can offer a little bit in that. I've had.
Could we have the member of the school committee or the superintendent or someone address that?
I think Daryl mentioned earlier that he had received 3 letters, Darren, from 3 different town managers. And so maybe that would be an indication on how it went there. Each of them asked us to come in lower than what we had presented. So that's just short and sweet. Hi, Daryl.
Sorry, I was just on the phone to get on, but now it's back on. So Darren, yes. So we've had 3 town managers. Ron set the whole thing off, working with the other 2 town managers who also sent it to us. So we do hear you, and that's kind of where we're at. I think some of the towns were a little more like, yep, okay, I can hear what you're saying, looks good, whatever, because their assessments aren't as large. It's not all created equal. The issue is going to be, again, Rutland and Holden have a lot of kids. You make up a large portion of the district. That's
Oh, Jesus, you need a new internet system, Daryl.
Hey, Rob.
That's how this ultimately plays out, unfortunately.
We need to give him a hotspot so that he can connect.
Good idea.
To add to that,
Oh, it's not free. He has to pay for it.
Yeah, trust me, I know. It's like, in typical, well, it's just
$100,000.
The Rutland service is typically not bad, but like it's been going out lately all the time.
So for $1 million, we could do some really good stuff.
You know what? You're right. Pete.
Pete's that technology guy, Daryl.
He is. Come on down. Emerald Road.
If I could add to that comment, because I've discussed this numerous times with each of the town managers, administrators in the district, because all of us are concerned in a tight budget year, and the superintendent's correct. I wrote one of those letters, and Peter and Holden wrote a letter, and Paxton wrote a letter, and my conversations, to give you an indication, Holden was talking about $1 million increase, and they're like 2.4 around there of an increase. So I can tell you clearly that Holden is very concerned this year, because unlike past years, they don't have the money that they used to be able to do this. So, they're looking for, over $1 million cut too. So when I suggest under 500, I'm not off what other towns are thinking too. And Daryl, if you know something different, but that's the kind of conversation. I know Holden's very concerned, and I know they're going to express their views at the school committee meeting and that. So it's not just Rutland, it's everybody.
No, and it isn't. I think, ultimately it's one of the things that we have to look at, and we're going to look at carefully. And, I think, Sherry mentioned it, there are needs in the schools. It's one of the things we have to balance it off. So when I look at this, again, I live in the town, I need fire, I need DPW, I need my road plowed, I need, the police to help out. we need all those things as well. I think one of the things that I still have to do is I still have to try to say, hey, listen, I really want to help support the kids and the staff as best I can. So there's always a give and take associated with that. But at the same time, you know, we know that we want to also have a budget passed. It's very difficult for us to live in a 1/12 budget. The first 3 years that I was here as a superintendent, we were 1/12. One of the years almost until, you know, we almost had the governor come in. I mean, the commissioner come in and set the budget. So we're definitely, you know, going to be working on this.
And to be clear, Daryl, just from my point of view, we all want to work with you too. We all want to support the children in town. We're all pro-education. Everybody's got children in the schools, so we're with you. We just don't want to do it at a loss to our policemen and firemen and all the other people that serve this great community. So there's no intention to say we don't want to support education, because we do. We just need to do it at a price that we can afford and without having to damage the town side of government. So I appreciate it. I know where you're coming from. You want the best education for the kids. So do we all. It just, there's a price limitation in what we can do. That's all.
Yeah, Ron.
We hear you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? So the only question would be, Daryl, is when do we assume we'll have this potentially new budget?
I'll be doing a budget hearing on Monday evening with the school committee. So we'll be able to share something out probably at that time.
Okay.
And then the final budget, and again, that's not the final budget because the final budget's voted on the 15th, the following Monday.
Okay.
Okay. So even if we come back and say, hey, here's where we're at on Monday, you know, this coming Monday, there could still be up, down based upon the school committee vote the following week.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And
you
again,
really meant, Daryl, there might be downs, not ups.
Did I say
Just
up and down?
directional.
Pete,
Just
I'm sorry.
directional, that's all.
Okay. So, okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, and you know, and again, I think one of the things that we just want to stress is that, and I didn't have a chance because my thing went off, but like for all of you, Select Board FinCom member, just how fantastic your the emergency medical professionals have been in the district over the past several weeks. You know, working with Seth and Rich, they've been awesome. You know, helping us get together. You know, working on a vaccine time frame for the school district. So I just wanted to tell you thank you from our vantage point. It's been very supportive. They've been great at our and Ron has attended all of our meetings with the boards of health. So Ron is, I think, the only town manager that comes to all of them. So again, those are kudos that go out to the people who have been working here for the town of Rutland. You know, and it's been very helpful for us. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of the district for that.
Been a good partnership.
All right, so I guess we'll wait to hear from you guys sometime during the week of the 15th, 16th.
Yep, and then and we'll make sure we'll get that stuff out to you, and Mitch, we'll make sure that gets to Karen and out to you. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right, so now FinComs, please stay on because we have one more thing we have to discuss.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Karen, once everybody clears out, I think we can probably adjourn because I don't think we have anything else to discuss with you, correct?
Nope, you guys can go ahead and adjourn. I have to have a conversation with the Finance Committee.
Okay.
You're not going to yell at us, are you?
We have to. I'm sorry, Pete?
No.
She's not going to yell at us, is she?
No.
No.
Because if she is, I'm going.
I'm leaving it. So, we got to have a roll call vote. So I'll entertain a motion at this point from any of the select board members that are conscious on here to adjourn.
So moved, Nichols.
All right. We have a second.
Second.
All right. I'll have a roll call vote. If there's no other conversation, hearing none. Clark.
Aye.
Nichols.
Nichols, aye.
Whiteman.
Whiteman, aye.
And Rossetti, aye. I think Jeff is off, so motion carries.
How about yes?
Clark. Did I call Clark? Clark?
He did.
Yeah, you do call me Clark. Clark.
All right. I think we're all set then. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everybody on FinCom. Really appreciate
Mitch,
it.
before you leave,
Yep.
Good job. Don't give up on that. They hammer them. They're not going to give it easily. So, and I think we got more than one town fighting them this year. So they better sharpen their pencils. Actually,
I'm educator. I like teachers more than anything in the world, but you know, you take a look at what our public safety's done and the choices that you are going to have to make with our budget, and we just need to work together on this. So I appreciate Karen and Ian's leadership and what you all are doing. So thank you.
We should go down with a package of pencils for Dan in the morning.
Yeah, we're going to sharpen those up. All right, everybody. Thank you again. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, we're adjourned. We're adjourned. Motion carried, so everybody can leave.
All right. So now, guys, we've got a lot of work to do in a very short period of time. So, I want to know if you guys want to do Tuesdays and Thursdays. You want to, what's everyone's availability as of right now? It's still going to be a Zoom meeting. We're working towards finding a space that's big enough so that we can all get into a room. I'm not giving up on that because I think this kinds of discussions are better held in person versus on a Zoom. But right now we're going to have to do it with Zoom. So are people amenable to Tuesdays and Thursdays? Kind of.
Are we going to want to meet before they have their final budget?
Well, we're going to have to start. This isn't just the school. We have to meet with all the departments and start having the conversations with them to see what their needs and what their needs are. The school is just a piece of it. We still have to have meetings with all of the town departments.
Ron informed me he's going to have his budget book to us by Monday night or Tuesday morning. We should probably do something after that.
Right. Well, that's why I was thinking maybe we start Tuesday.
Well, a couple of days to look at it, maybe Thursday. How's that?
We could, or we could just take easy departments to start with on Tuesday, and then move into the more difficult ones. Just for the simple reason that we only have, if we stay with the May, we've only got what, 8 weeks, 7 weeks, and this is going to take a lot.
Tuesdays and Thursdays works for me, for sure. Wednesdays are no good anyway, so Tuesdays and Thursdays are good for me.
Okay. How about you, Darren?
I would concur with David. I like Tuesday and Thursdays.
Okay. Ted?
That should work most weeks. Yep.
Okay. Tommy?
Yeah. Thursdays is best. Tuesdays would be okay too.
Okay. How about you, Pete?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So I guess then I will have Tamika set up agendas for Tuesdays and Thursdays going forward straight through May 8th.
So Karen,
Madam Chair, if I may, for a second, I'm sorry I can't raise my hand because I'm running the meeting.
That's okay.
FYI, the cable committee will probably not be able to broadcast those meetings on Tuesdays because we're just overbooked.
Okay.
That was my concern too, Pete, is I'm also obligated every Tuesday between the planning board and the conservation alternating.
Okay.
So I don't know if Ron has a preference of which board I, report to for the minutes. I can definitely take care of the agendas for you guys. I'm just not sure how Ron would like to work that.
so a couple of comments. What was your, first of all, what was your other meeting to make on Tuesday?
It's 1 week is Concom, the alternating week is planning board.
I would say, again, I'm not trying to insult anybody. Of the two, I think the planning board is more important the year at a planning board meeting than I think at CONCOM. I guess I would say to Peter, if he can get one of his members just to take minutes for the CONCOM meeting, that would be very, very helpful. I don't know, this Tuesday, I think, Karen, from what you described, we would do, me and Ian had worked, and I gave it to Karen a list of kind of groupings. And I think that, Karen, I think you're talking about doing commissions Tuesday night, which would be the easiest of the groups. We could go through that pretty easily on Tuesday night and go through some things really, really fast. So that's what I would recommend. I guess the big issue is that you'd have to get it posted tomorrow for a Tuesday meeting.
Yep.
And have it set up. So that's got to be taken care of tomorrow. And Karen could provide, I don't know if Tamika, you're going to set it up, but she could provide you with the agenda of departments, and I can try to notify them tomorrow, Karen, too. But most of those, I don't even need them to show up. like me and you talked about maybe the planning commission, maybe
Well,
one or two other boards
I
of
don't
commission.
think, I don't think the planning board can be there because I think the planning board is Tuesday.
And truthfully, I truthfully, I don't think those excess funds that me and you were talking about are very significant. So I don't see that as a problem, but we can always, if we have to, we can take the planning commission on another night and just add them to one of the other agendas if that becomes a question, okay?
I did not see the listing of the groupings in my email. I did look, I did not see them. So if you can send them to me, that way I can send it to Tamika and we can get this started.
Okay, yeah, I sent them out to you. I'll resend them tomorrow. But let's make sure we touch base early in the morning tomorrow so that we can get that done.
Yeah, and then I'll send it off and we'll get it all squared away, Tamika, because I don't want to hold you guys up either. Go ahead.
Sure. Yep. As soon as you get that to me, I will get the first agenda posted for Tuesday.
Perfect.
So Monday night, I'm going to do the presentation. The first half hour, it's really just for you guys to listen to the presentation. It's not a big question and answer period. I just want to go through the highlights of the budget with everybody. And then Tuesday morning, I can either, I guess, frankly, I'll bring them personally if I have to, because I want to get you guys the budget books, or if there's members who can actually come to my office and pick them up, that'd be easier for me. But
Can you get them before you are meeting Monday night by chance, Ron?
Yeah, I'd prefer it. I want you to, quite frankly, I want everybody to pay attention to the presentation, not be reading the budget books as I'm doing this. So I'd prefer to give them to you first thing Tuesday morning. Because if I give them to people, everybody's going to be reading the book and they're not going to be paying attention to anything I say. So that's why I'd prefer to give it to you guys Tuesday morning. I talked with Karen about sending you, I'm going to have a budget presentation. I'll send that out to you guys a couple hours before the meeting so you can review the budget presentation itself prior to the meeting. But if you guys, in terms of picking up the books, if members can come in and pick them up, please shoot me an email. If you can't, I'll personally deliver them. But I don't know if you guys are going to be at work or whatever, so I don't want to leave them on your doorsteps and stuff. So, if there's a problem with me bringing it to the house, no one's going to be there. I need to know it because, like I said, I don't want to leave the book on your porches if I have to do that. But I want to.
I'll come and get it. My dog will eat it, so I'll come and get it from you, bro.
Anybody that could would frankly make it so much easier for me. If let's put it this way, if you can't come and pick up your book tomorrow, then shoot me an email and I'll deliver it to you. Okay, let's do it that way. And I know you guys are working. That's why I want to try to make it work for you guys. Even if you can't pick up the book, if you send a family member or a friend, I think you'll be happy with the book and the information. It's very well laid out. Everything I could think of, I put in that book for you guys. So I think you'll be able to understand it, but it doesn't matter how pretty the document is. Doesn't matter how much information. The real problem is in the actual numbers.
This is a physical book.
You just say,
Is there any possibility that it might be electronic?
pick it up tomorrow.
No, it's huge. It's not set up in that way. It's really separated in a really clear format. So it would take me forever to try to piecemeal it into an electronic format.
Okay.
So Tommy's asking because you said pick it up tomorrow. You don't mean pick it up
No, I
tomorrow.
mean pick it up Tuesday. Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tuesday.
Tommy, he misspoke. It's Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday, Tommy.
Tuesday.
Tuesday morning.
All right.
Anytime Tuesday, because you want to have it for Tuesday night. Although, quite frankly, as I said, the things we're doing Tuesday night is Conservation Commission. They have a budget of $400. The planning thing has a $1,000 budget. We're going to deal with a lot of commissions that have probably the whole thing will be $25,000 because it's all very small, tight little budgets.
Yeah, but
We
we
gotta go
can't,
through it.
I don't think we can have, because Peter will be gonna be there for planning board, so we're gonna have to choose something smaller. So if you send me the list, we'll go through and see.
Yep, I'll send you the list, but I'm going to tell you right now, every one of the boards and commissions are level funded with the exception of our DIC. And that is just a discussion we got to have because of the Harbor Homes project, how we pay Tamika for all the minutes she's going to be taking for the RDIC. But everything else is completely level funded. So there's not a lot to discuss.
But it's still important for us to meet with the departments to let them tell us what their needs are for the current year and how being level funded is going to hamper them. We need to be prepared for this conversation. It's a tough conversation to have.
Fine. Just like I said, check off for me when I send you a list tomorrow. Check off the ones you want me to invite, and I'll invite them. But it will be. I tried to in the distribution I did among all the different departments. I tried to set the distribution in such a way as the meetings wouldn't be unbelievably long. So, I broke it out and put a bunch of small things together. Yeah, police and fire and DP, police and fire and public safety, dispatch all together as one night. That probably longest night would be those 3 departments together. But all the other ones will be, I think you can get through each of these budget nights in a couple of hours. I don't think it's gonna be long. I think tonight's probably was the worst one of all of them, but I
And
think it'll be reasonable in terms of the structure.
is everybody okay with 6 o'clock?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
So you're gonna set up, tomorrow morning, I'll give it to you. You're gonna set up the agenda and work with Tamika and get it posted? Okay, then
I'll get everything all squared away for you, and we'll be in touch tomorrow morning.
That's great. Ron, I'll set up the meeting in Zoom, and then do you want me to just send out the email to the folks that are inviting so you don't have to do that? Because I'll have the Zoom info?
Yeah, I think you set up the Zoom meeting for Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
You can invite all the finance board, and I think that the courtesy, Karen invites selectmen if they want to attend.
Yeah.
But
And then I'll invite the commission chairs or whomever it is that we're discussing that night. You want me to send that out to them as well?
let's talk about that because I don't think we need them all. But me and Karen will work that in the morning, which one she wants.
Okay.
Well, what we're going to want might be slightly different, but we're going to want people to attend these meetings.
Yeah,
We're not
I don't-
going to just look at pieces of paper. We want to hear from them what they need. Regardless, that's what we do here in this town, so that when we're making decisions, we've heard in their terms, in their voices, what they need.
That's fine.
And we have a situation this year where the school committee is going to come in or the schools are going to come in and they're going to be at a certain number. And I think we're going to have to prepare folks to consider sharpening their own pencils.
Yep.
And so if we have to convey that as a committee, I think we need to do that face to face.
So just to let you know, to be clear, in the budget process of me putting together the budget, I've done that with all of my commission members. I pretty much told them that the budgets are all going to be level, that you're going to find it, most of the departments are level except for contractual items. Knowing the deficit situation we're going to be in, you're going to find that I've cut this budget to mostly contractual items. So that's, I say, commission members were informed that their budgets were going to be level. The only commission that really raised an issue with it was the RDIC because they have unique issues.
Yeah, but with what you were saying earlier, Ron,
yeah,
maybe level isn't going to be good enough.
No, you're right. That's why I don't really care if the conservation committee says, "Oh, we'd love to have another $500." The chances are they're not getting it this year because we're not going to have it. Period. So I'm not, and they all understand that because I told them about the $405,000 deficit. So I don't think there's a lot of debate upon these boards and commissions. They're all tiny dollars and they understand the deficit situation. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of discussion with individual commission members. Just, and I've had those discussions before it even comes to you. So I know that they've been informed of the budget situation. So.
But we're the ones that have to sit up in front of the town to explain why we have to make the cuts. And take my word for it, last year, we needed to have more information than what we had. So we want to have, because we didn't meet with all the departments, we want to meet with all the departments this year so that we're prepared for this meeting.
Yeah, and truthfully, Karen, I completely agree with the department issues. I'm just not so sure that, you need to spend massive time with a commission that's asking for $400, you know what I mean? But the departments are different. I'm talking specifically boards and commissions, We just don't, I just think your time could be, again, with the limited time we're going to have here, I think your time could be better spent on budgets that have some money in them, not, 20 commissions for a total of $7,000 or $6,000. It's just, I'm not sure.
That's why they pay us the big bucks, Ron.
Well, that's up to you. Anyway, I'll work with Karen on that tomorrow. Anything else of me you guys need before I depart?
Nope.
Hey, Karen, thank you for everything. I appreciate.
Okay.
I hope I wasn't too intrusive, but I wanted to send a very clear message to the school system. And I've been working hard at sending that message for months. So I wanted to make sure I followed all the way through the process. All right.
All right.
Hey, Ron, I did have one question. Last year, Mike sent a lot of stuff through the Finance Committee Google Drive. Are you going to be using that? Do I need to be looking there or not?
No, I'm going to give you a budget book that's going to have all complete information. You're not going to, I don't think you're going to be in need of a lot of additional information.
Okay.
If you guys have requests, I'll fill it, but you're going to find that this is a different kind of budget book than you've ever gotten before.
Hey, Darren, are you going up Tuesday to pick up your budget book?
Ted, I was gonna have Karen or go over and see David or something, and I'll grab yours and bring it over, buddy.
Dave, when
I'm gonna use Dave.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll be the courier.
Well, you can be the courier. I'll come over for a libation. How's that?
There you go.
I'm going up to get mine so I can get yours, Ted, because I have your capital improvement book.
Oh, you have it. Okay.
I do. I have it. It got that much closer, and I will be in touch with you maybe this weekend to swing it by. So.
Sounds great. Thanks.
I'd like to just make one comment. I don't care if Ron's here or not. I am not happy that I like to look at. I know Mr. Rochelle likes to look at paper, and I'm sure Mr. O'Malley and a few other people on this board like to look at paper. And if he's done this wonderful job with it, give us the damn book so I can look at it. I want to fall asleep. What's the problem? I gotta have it.
Let me finish it. I gotta finish the budget presentation. My plan is to finish the budget presentation tomorrow and finish the books tomorrow. So
I'm not being. I don't want to.
I get it.
So, Darren, what do you really think?
Yeah, there you go.
I can tell you, but I think I let it go already, Pete.
Hey, listen, Ian made the distribution of all those capital improvement books. So if one of you guys want to distribute to all 7 members, it makes my life easier. So anybody who wants to play the distribution person, I'm all for it. I'll give you all 7. You guys can distribute them. I'm good with that.
Hey,
You know,
Tommy,
one thing.
do you want me to get your book and bring it by your house?
No, I'll be working, but I'm gonna go get my book.
Okay.
You said some of a capital book, capital planning book?
Ian dropped off the capital improvement plan book. I don't know.
That's over a month ago.
I was gonna say a month ago, month and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah, I had asked Anita to deliver me mine, and Ian had already grabbed it.
Yeah.
And then Ian and I traded a bunch of text messages. I'll get it, you get it, and we never.
Well, the good news is, Ted, I'm just gonna drive it down and I'm just gonna drop it off. I'm not worried.
Perfect.
Hey guys, can I ask you a quick question about that? Did any of you look at that? Did you feel that was helpful? I know the capital improvement committee really didn't have anything like that, so I kind of really built it out, and it's going to be even built out farther next year. But did any of you feel that was something helpful for you? Because I doubt you ever saw something like that before from the capital improvement group. Is that accurate?
No, we've received stuff like that in the past from them.
Okay.
We have in the past.
From my perspective, Ron, it would have been more helpful if we were to take each one of the departments and do an annual number, so that you could see over a 5 or 10 year period of time what the total is going to be for fire or for police or whatever, instead of going year to year to year. It just gets confusing trying to line things up, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I understand it. The point of the year thing is that in the first year, for instance, let's say the 22 capital budget, it's a much more detailed thing. I asked the department heads to drill down on the issues, because they're going to go to town meeting and the finance committee and everybody and ask for the money. But when you start going 23, 24, 25, the details of the capital improvement are way less.
But I understand that, but you can at least see year over year what the expectation is going to be, or at least what the request is going to be.
So did you guys get, I can give it to you. I think I have it in terms of an Excel spreadsheet for the 5 years like that.
I'll take it.
Just send you the Excel. I think I broke it out and put it in each year, but I think I have the 5 year spreadsheet in one Excel document with different tabs. So I can ship that out to you if that helps you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, let me look at it, because I think I have it like that. I actually thought it was making it easier for you, breaking it out year by year. But I'll give you the Excel spreadsheet that has all 5 years in it. I think it's set up that way. So
Okay.
I'll remind me. I'll ship that out tomorrow if I can.
I'll send you a note.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
There you go.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. O'Malley,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Darren,
Aye.
Ted,
Purcell, aye.
and And Tommy.
Aye.
And Narwhal, aye. Okay.